Hello, everyone. I hope you're having a wonderful Wednesday. It's a midweek stream. That hasn't happened in a long time. It's very cold here. We've been hit by a flurry of wet snow that made it hard to get around yesterday. And, yeah. I'm sure there's no other important news of any kind to talk about. It's been cold here. I walked my dog a little bit ago. I was absolutely frozen, so that's wonderful that'll just be the case for the next few months. Kind of. Colorado gets pretty warm even during the winter, so I'm sure all the snow will kind of go away again. And there'll be warm days of dog walks and playing with my dog outside and such, but for now it's real wet and shitty. So yeah. I hope everyone else is doing all right out there. We're gonna get into some prep probably pretty quick. Might be a shorter stream tonight, maybe. Yeah. I don't really have, we're gonna work on the session worksheet. I'm gonna recap the last session, which should be shorter than usual. I'm gonna do a little bit of the session worksheet and then maybe work on the dungeon a little bit. Maybe we'll work on the dungeon. There's a couple rooms left. It's really just the last few. There's a couple of fiddly things I can work on. Like I want to automate some trap stuff that's going on. We'll get to that in a little bit. But I think a lot of the automation will happen off stream, and then I'll kind of show you guys what I did. I think that's a more interesting way to do it than like dealing with code automation and scripts and weird stuff on stream. That just sounds not that fun. Hello, Aki. How are you doing? Welcome in. And yeah, I don't have a whole lot of story this week. I almost went to work tonight. I got a text saying that they were adding shifts at the warehouse. If you don't know, I've started a part-time job, like an Amazon warehouse nearby, which is kind of perfect. It doesn't use any mental capacity for the day. So like I can kind of go to work and then come back, and I'm still like pretty happy to work on like GM prep or creative stuff, music a little bit, you know? It's well, not when I come back, I guess, because my work shift is how I end my nights. I work from like 2:30 a.m. to 6:30 a.m. usually kind of extends to 7 and I get a little extra money. So yeah. So I kind of end my nights with it. So but still, I wake up the next day and I'm like just ready to go creatively. It's mostly I'm just like a little bodily sore. Can't stay since I'm in a friend's stream, but I haven't been able to stop by, and I'm actually on Twitch now, so I thought I'd stop by. That's fair. Yeah, it's going pretty well. I still have the contract work, which is the only reason a part-time warehouse thing is enough. It's because I'm doing like a very time-efficient sort of work on the side that pays pretty well for the time I put in. But I don't get a lot of those hours, so I have this part-time job, and it's going nicely. And yeah, they added a shift tonight. They have this thing where you can just do like voluntary extra shifts kind of whenever you can like add to your schedule. So I've been doing that a little bit on my weeks where I don't have contract work and make up a little bit of that by picking up some of these extra shifts. And tonight there was one that was added that I almost grabbed, but so I wasn't interested at first because my overnight shifts pay like a premium because they're overnight. So that's why I picked those. So I just like don't take extra shifts if they don't kind of like match that pay. And then they added premium pay to it when there was like 20 minutes before the shift. And I was like, oh, well, well, that I would have taken, but now I don't have enough time to like get into my work clothes and work boots and like get in my car and get there. It takes like 15 minutes to drive when the weather's nice, and as discussed previously, it's snowy and shitty. So I couldn't accept it. So I skipped it, sadly. I would have would have been happy to work it with the premium pay. And yeah, it is kind of interesting. It's the only job I've ever had where I'm like, oh yeah, I can't work as many hours as I want. I'm capped at like 30 a week. But that's like an extra 2 shifts. I can work like an extra 2 shifts a week if I just like decide I want more money, I can just work an extra couple of shifts. So that's, I don't know, that's very nice. The first job where I've had anything like that, I can just like pick up extra shifts for money, which probably sounds weird, but I don't know. I went right from working in like a woodworking shop with a very set schedule to like working a salaried job. So I don't know. So that's where I've been at the last couple of weeks. We're doing a little bit better of a job of sneaking in the streams, sort of. Still working on it through the schedule change, trying to prevent. I mean, the schedule change has already thrown off my entire groove that I had going on before. So we didn't do a good job of mitigating that, but we're doing a good job of getting back to having the rest of my schedule again, now that I'm kind of used to it. Now that going to work isn't like an event every day, you know, now that it's getting to be very automatic, and like my expectations for the amount of time every day are more streamlined. So yeah, so there's that going on. And I think that's all I have to say on my recaps for the week so far. Yep. Yeah. Hanging out with friends and watching Arcane on Friday night. That'll be fun. And yeah. That's about it. Watched the new season of Vox Machina. Really enjoyed that. Gotta go now, but I'm glad I got to catch up. I'm glad you were able to stop by as well. Thank you for swinging by and saying hello, Aki. I'll catch you again soon, I'm sure. Yeah. It'll probably be a short stream. Just gonna get a little bit of prep out of the way. Not gonna try to like totally finish the dungeon tonight. Just wanna, every week I wanna get the recap and the prep done, you know? Recap the last session, get the prep sheet done for the new session. I need to get this stuff up on YouTube pretty soon. We are approaching episode 30 of this campaign, and I haven't, like, it's all up on YouTube, but not as like videos. So I want to start, they're all as like live streams. So I want to start cutting them and putting them up as videos that people might actually watch, with like video titles about what was said and maybe a little edited, you know? Maybe we'll get crazy. We'll chop off the end and the start. Maybe. Who knows? And the breaks even. Maybe. I've got DaVinci Resolve. I've been playing with it a little bit. Made the intro video for the campaign that no one has seen because I haven't put it up anywhere. Anyway. So. Yeah. So let's get on to the recap, shall we? I don't really... Yeah, I don't have anything to show at the start. That's fine. So, last session, we started off, the players ventured to a nearby town to spend some money, a place called Expedition's Landing that showed up in a previous campaign. They sought some rumors there, tried to hear for anything interesting going on. They found out that this item, this object that one of the adventurers kind of left behind, also from a previous campaign, found out that this was taken back to the home of a couple of friendly old troll ladies. Was brought back to the den, back to their den. They planted it. They had a wonderful little garden that was growing around it. It's this staff that is an arm of a dryad. This is all from an kind of like old school adventure called Sepulchre of Seven. That's really super fun, super enjoyable. I really loved running it. Even like adapting it to Pathfinder was super easy. You just kind of like plop in, you know, some like similar monsters, and it all just kind of like worked out naturally. The only thing I had to custom make was like an oil beetle, I think, which showed up in another kind of like old OSR adventure that I updated and ran. So, I don't know. I recommend that. I recommend updating old school style adventures. They've all been great. Everyone I've run has been great in like Pathfinder. I'm sure you could do the same in D&D, and it would be great. I'm sure that's, I don't know that for sure, but I would recommend trying it. So, I found out about the staff. They were like, hey, maybe we could go pick this up, which is when it turned in my head into an artifact. Not an artifact, a relic that one of the players will be able to customize and bring with them on their adventures and kind of, yeah, customize how it works over time. I'll show you some of that in a little bit. If you'll excuse, I need to scroll down. I'm getting distracted by the music. The video for the music I'm listening to, it's got like a video up here, and I keep like looking up there. I'm sure you've noticed. So, they found out where this is. They kind of got led to kind of a riverway that leads to where this grove is. And then they decided that they were going to delve into this dungeon that they've been considering for a little while. One of the players, Turris, he is a dungeon. He is the dungeon ancestry from the Battle Zoo Bestiary books. Not the Battle Zoo Bestiary books, but the Battle Zoo books. I've got a couple of ancestry books out, and dungeon is one of the kind of monstrous creatures you can be from those books. So, one of the players is a dungeon. He is kind of a mage's tower. We've kind of delved into the backstory a little bit, quite a bit really, of where this tower came from, how it came into existence, who made it. He's already met the creator of this tower. Sort of. He hasn't met who's given him the spark of life yet. He's met the physical creator of the dungeon. The event that led to this dungeon becoming a conscious thing, that is yet to be fully explored. They've talked about, they've gotten a riddle, some clues about how it happened. They've gone back and forth about that a little bit. They've pondered that a little bit. They haven't come to an answer. So we'll get to that in the future. That'll start being sprinkled in at the end of this floor. Hinted a little more heavily on the next floor, kind of. And then just very obviously stated. Probably on like the fourth floor, which is the third like explorable floor, right? That's where it's gonna like become blatantly stated for the players, I think. So, keeping it a mystery net for now. But the players venture into the first floor of this explorable dungeon, and we'll go ahead and take a look at that. They decided they're going to hold off on this grove and getting this staff back for a little while, which is just as well. That's totally fine. And decided to start venturing into the dungeon. The dungeon. Which I'm loading now. Which they started to explore. They've gotten through this kind of front hall, and they were like, oh, it's nice and sunny outside. They could just see the courtyard down below of the outside of the tower. Nothing strange going on. We, with the GM view, can obviously see something else is going on. They played around with this kind of like blue, kind of, I described it as like something between electricity and water. It's kind of like this puddle on the floor that kind of is like jumping around, arcing to like the bookshelf like electricity at the same time. It's not just like an electrified puddle, it is a puddle of kind of electricity. And this is like, they identified it very quickly as leyline energy. They've been talking lately about how to power the tower with leyline energy brought up from below, from the world. They've been discussing ley lines a little bit as like, it seems like there's something preventing the old gods of the world from tapping into these ley lines. So they've made some old god allies who don't have their full power because they can't tap into these ley lines. This goes into some world lore that we don't have to get into right now. So they played around in this kind of front hall a little bit, commented about, oh, this looks nicer than I thought. This is not quite what I expected up here. Found like a nice romance novel to take from this bookshelf, among other things. Saw this flower, this plant that's kind of strangely structured, strangely colored. It looked like an amalgam of different plants that they've seen. So they ventured forth. They found a trap here that I don't have fully graphicked, but they found effectively a hole in the floor that was a kind of a gelatinous cube that didn't have any damaging properties, but would kind of like stun a creature into submission and then put them into stasis. It would kind of like freeze itself. It was like a self-automated stasis trap, and they heard the voice of the mage who created the tower kind of saying, effectively, like, bold of you to go exploring in a wizard's tower, in a guardian's tower. Sorry to tell you that you've stumbled into one of my traps. I will be along shortly. This will just put you into stasis, so just relax and let it put you into stasis, and nothing horrible will happen. I'll be along eventually to move you to a humane location and let you free. But last time, the last gap between my visits to my tower at the time of recording, it was like 34 years, so I hope you didn't have anywhere to be urgently. So, the players managed to kind of avoid falling into it. I gave her a reflex save not to just like fall into the trap, which he succeeded quite handily. It wasn't even close. So he kind of like avoided falling directly into it. This ooze kind of like reached up and tried to like pull him back in. Turkan was the one who stumbled into it, our large Minotaur player. And the players did not. Sorry about that. That was like right next to me. That was so loud. Sorry about that. Map is looking good, thank you. I'm quite happy with how pretty this all is in this top half here. I am quite pleased. Bottom half, pretty empty. Got a couple of things to figure out here, but you know, we're working on it. I figured they were only gonna get through about half of this, and that's pretty much what happened, yeah. I put some barriers in the way to kind of artificially block going deeper in, just in case, but it didn't come up. So the players kind of dealt with that. They were like, we're gonna have trouble kind of getting everyone over this gap, so let's just go the other way for now. It's like a 10-foot gap of the floor with this slime kind of sitting there. So they decided to just leave it be for now. They went back, opened the other door, wandered into this dining room. This is all kind of like, a lot of this is kind of the guest floor, sort of, kind of the place where visitors are expected to be. So the like dining room is right out front. There's a nice like sitting and waiting room by the windows, right, with like a couple of books, a couple of shelves full of books more meant for entertainment. So they walked in here, grabbed some of this food. Yeah, this is like a wizard's tower. There's like a lot of lore going on here, but the two things going on. One, this is technically the body of one of the players who is the Battle Zoo like dungeon ancestry. He just literally is the avatar of a dungeon, and this is him. This is his dungeon. It was also created initially by a wizard who's kind of like they're actually a Naga, kind of like a servant of one of the gods in the world. So kind of a big deal wizard. So that's like exactly right. This is kind of pulling. It's like part Medivh's tower from Warcraft, part like TARDIS kind of. So there's a lot of stuff going on, but you know, it's all gonna be. Lots of this wizard's interests are going to be reflected here. So we'll get to that, you know. There's like the library and like this workshop over here that's completely wrecked that we'll get to. And yeah, so this, you know, they walked into this room, started grabbing some of the food, some like silverware started to float out and like kind of set the table on its own. When it kind of determined the number of guests, it started to set that number of place sets plus one for the host. Then there was a surge of this kind of blue, watery electricity that we discussed in that first room. That kind of came like rushing through this room, kind of zapped its way through all of the silverware, and it became swarms of animated silverware. So they had a nice little, pretty easy fight, really, with some of these silverware swarms, and that was pretty fun. They had an ability. Basically, their whole thing is they like pin you to a location, and then you have to roll kind of like worse reflex saves against this area of effect attack of just the swarm of plates and silverware swirling around and stabbing and slicing at you. So, there was kind of a part where I stretched the rules a little bit. One of them tried to cast Dispel Magic on this animated set of silverware, which obviously Dispel Magic isn't like supposed to just completely disable this creature. But I had them roll a counteract check. They got a regular success. So I was like, you like chunk this set of animated silverware in half. We're just going to cut the HP down to half, and they will lose kind of their construct extra armor they get for being constructed. They'll lose some of their bonuses. So that made the fight much easier, but it was a high rank spell slot. So, you know, I figure that's fine. There were kind of two of these swarms. They smashed through both of them pretty easily. It wasn't supposed to be like a super hard encounter. It's just kind of like some fun, flavorful encounters to suck up some resources. So they had that. And then they walked over to this door, and they're like, well, we're just going to keep going after grabbing some of the food. And they open the door, and they're like, oh, is this space? What's going on out here? The first person who, like, opened the door, they just, like, did the classic, like, I'm just going to close that. I'm going to close that. I'm going to ask what everyone else thinks when they open it. They open it, see the same thing, started looking around. They found, started kind of exploring this space, and found that these tears kind of lead to places on the material plane, which immediately kind of begs the question of, like, all right, where is this? This is on the ethereal plane. Parts of the tower, the thing that kind of enables it to be TARDIS-like and bigger on the inside is that some of the insides, some of the outside, some of it's all entangled on the ethereal plane, or at least like pocket dimensions kind of curled inward, made out of the ethereal plane. Which in Pathfinder lore is like, the ethereal plane is like the space between kind of the worlds and planes of the inner planes. And then the astral is kind of the sea between the inner planes and the outer planes. So there's that, if you weren't aware of that lore for Pathfinder. So they were kind of checking all of this out. They got ambushed by some ether spiders, which are just spiders that blink back and forth between the ethereal and the material plane. This is kind of like ether spiders in reverse, because usually they're attacking you from the ethereal plane and you can't see them, and they'll pop into the material plane, they'll like bite at you and web you, and then they'll pop back to the ethereal plane. You won't be able to spot or hit them unless you, like, you know, kind of ready some actions and stuff. This was just exactly that, but in reverse. If they kind of went to these pockets of the material plane, they were able to kind of like hit them when they got close to those pockets. So they kind of ended up like baiting them over to these and like kind of shooting them, hitting them through these tears. And that's how they handled the encounter. It works pretty well. Again, you know, they've exited, they've healed up a little bit, but they weren't like too harmed by it. They got through it pretty quickly. We were also running out of time, so the last spider, we were like 10 minutes over time. And I just had the last spider run away for pacing. So they handled all of that. They were like, we're not gonna look into these portals too much because they all seem a little unstable, but it seems like we'll be able to kind of repair this. And we'll be able to have kind of like portals around the place, maybe. We'll have a little bit of fast travel, at least in one direction, maybe. I'm still not sure exactly how that's gonna work, but that was kind of what this room was showing. So, gotta love Hate Medivh, yeah. Yeah. This mage has a little... they've made their own deals that the world has had to deal with for a long time. It's a lot to get into, but yeah. They were kind of like told that their duty to the world, these Naga, their duty to the world kind of overwrote their... They were pretty much told, like, you have to work with these invaders who are coming, so that you are here to, like, watch over the world as it's, as the guardians of kind of the ley lines in the land. So they've got some, like, complexes about that. They all feel very, very guilty about helping these gods that kind of took over the world for a few thousand years. And they don't feel too terribly happy about their role in it, even though they were like kind of told by the person who bestowed this responsibility onto them. Whatever. So, in a moderately medieval-like way, they've kind of accidentally helped enemies of this world for quite some time, but it's kind of like framed a little differently in the campaign, I suppose. Certainly not as corrupted as Medieval. So they found this library, they started looking around, picking up some whatever they could find that was interesting. This is what Turris has been looking for a long time. He's like, finally. Finally I can access all of the knowledge that I know my mother kept here. So, started looking through this immediately. Kind of described it as like, there are very tall, very organized bookshelves all throughout here. That, you know, clearly there was a bit of organization going on at the start. This person, like, did care about keeping things organized and tidy and all of that. And then they started just, like, slamming in extra bookshelves to, like, get more reference material kind of shoved in here, kind of like shorter, more temporary shelves that have taken up longer-term residence over time. So, the kind of, like, deterioration of organization going on in here was showcased. Turkan just, like, picked up a book. Was like, do I find an interesting book to grab? I just grabbed the first thing that looks interesting. Had him roll, like, perception check to kind of find things. Found a book that I said he found interesting, and then had him roll on the rumor table, and he got a very interesting one. So, we kind of, like, spent a little time last time making sure that all of our rumors were, like, generalized and made sense to kind of find in unexpected places. Like, we didn't want to have very specific places where this information would be found. So he rolled a 3 and got this thing of, like, an empire across the ocean holds steno in reverence. So he just found a book of notes from this wizard on this empire, on this Gimian empire, who kind of holds certain stenos in high regard, considers them kind of like spiritual leaders of sorts. And this wizard was very perplexed that they wouldn't, like, share with her what the deal was with these spirit speakers. She, like, heard that one of these steno was called a spirit speaker, but didn't really know, wasn't able to kind of figure out what it was all about. It's a very closely guarded secret in this empire, and not even everyone in the empire knows. It's kind of like, it's very closely guarded. So, they've got a little hint of that. And we'll come to that sometime much later, I'm sure. But kind of the idea is that these old gods that were sealed away by these invader gods, this Gamian Empire has known for a long time that they exist and has been communing with them. And their whole society is going to be kind of like built around that secret a little bit. I think that's kind of an interesting thing to look at in the game. Especially this particular campaign where the invader gods are being chased by the invaders that they themselves were running from, and the world is kind of dealing with the consequence of these gods who invaded and took over the world. So, that was kind of where we ended the session. That was, like, literally maybe the last thing that happened, was Turkan showing Steris this book of steno, kind of Medusa-like figures, being held in high regard in this empire, and that's where we ended. They are about to, I'm surprised no one opened this door, but they are about to see kind of the center room where all of this ley line energy gets sucked up, and see that it's not just broken. There is a big-ass tree, a big-ass blue lightning tree that has kind of taken up residence right in the core of where all of this ley line energy is supposed to go. It's got kind of this similar blue coloring to some of these flowers that they saw all over the place. I'm kind of figuring out the backstory with that and what the blue flowers exactly mean. But I think they were tended to by another of the Guardian Naga, but one that is dead, who is the other mother, the other parent of Turris, the dungeon. And she is the one responsible for Turris actually coming to life. This dungeon actually, like, gaining consciousness. So, that'll be fun to explore. They won't learn any of this from this boss fight. It's just more hints when they find an angry blue willow growing in the reactor core here. So they'll run into that soon. This is a hard fucking fight. This is a big deal fight. It's like 3 levels. The creature is like 3 levels above them. But it can't chase them out of this room. It's enormous. It's huge. And it's slow. And it does like big AoE attacks. Like, I think the situation here is that they're going to go in, they're going to give it a shot. They're going to see that it's got like a ton of armor. It's like kind of hard to hit. It has these big like AoE effects. It does a lot of like lightning and fire damage. And what I suspect is they're going to try to get an idea of what this thing is, what its like weaknesses and immunities are. And then they're going to be kind of like forced to leave and come back when they've prepared. That's kind of the idea. Like, because this fight is so easy to run away from, it's going to be kind of a tough fight. And they have a way to get around it if they don't want to deal with this right now. If they kind of like switch some of these valves off, then the Willow won't be able to like suck up nearly as much leyline energy, so they won't be like blasting away with their AoE moves every time. They're, there's a valve in each corner here that they'll be able to turn off. This will also, if they do that, kind of get rid of these barriers that are preventing their traversal deeper in. So they can technically finish the floor without dealing with this fight at all, as long as they open some of the valves, close some of the valves. So they could do that and kind of like circumvent that, go through the workshop instead. The workshop is a bit of an easier fight. It's only it's only +2 levels, and it is this Iron Houndmaster. It's kind of like a mechanical centaur creature. It's like a bipedal mech, a bipedal like automaton fused with kind of a 6-legged dog automaton. And once it gets to half health, it splits into 2 creatures, each one with half of that health, so like a quarter of the max health, and they start acting independently. They always have. It's a fight that gets harder as it goes on, but the creatures will be very fragile at the end of the fight. So each creature kind of gets like they get like a half turn in the initiative order, 2/3 turn, whatever. And then once they get down below half health, they split apart, they get their full turns, they get a little bit more combat capability, a little more ability to work together. But at that point, they can probably take one of them out pretty easily. And then there's, only one left. And yeah, the fight gets easier from there after they kind of like take one out. So the deal with this workshop is just the mage had a lot of time to work on things. They've got like an alchemy workshop up here. This is where they kind of like built like vehicles and robots and automatons and things. This is kind of like the garage. And it's been absolutely kind of destroyed by this. Once again, lots of leyline energy has kind of been flowing into here and just made one of these robots go haywire, and it kind of has been tearing the place apart. So all of these, a couple of them were like vehicles or other robots or something, or like the ceiling's kind of torn up. It's like a garage. This thing is like absolutely torn apart a garage. Down here, there's like a smithy, like a more typical kind of blacksmith setup. And that's all we've got so far. Those are kind of the 2 unexplored rooms in here. So, what we're going to end up working on are kind of these next few rooms. We're going to work on the worksheet first, and then we might work on these last few rooms, but that might be a thing that I work on off stream, perhaps. But this is where we are going to start kind of introducing a few kind of flashbacks, a few memories of this other Naga that the party hasn't met because she is dead. They're going to start glimpsing a couple of scenes related to this other Naga and the criminal who kind of replaced her. So whereas like we have some security messages from the mage at the start being like, hello, welcome, please wait for me in the sitting room. Oh, you tried to go this way? Well, you foolish thief, I will come back for you shortly. Or like, enjoy sitting down for dinner. I will be in. If this is a scheduled visit, I'll be in to join you for dinner shortly. Like all these kind of pre-recorded messages for visitors, that will get replaced by literal memories that Turris is experiencing. Not pre-recorded messages, but things that have like happened in the tower that kind of relate to his parents' history and his own history. So I'm a little excited for that. Yeah, so I have to figure out what these last few rooms are going to be. I was thinking maybe one's going to be like a stable. This is going to lead up to a garden. Kind of like an arboretum area, I think, is what's going to be up there. Which is kind of what this other Naga was responsible for. So that's kind of why we're tying these things in at the end. And yeah. So this last room doesn't have to be anything but like a stairway out, really. But the other rooms should be something, and I'm not sure what of this all is going to survive. This kind of ethereal area should probably be another encounter, but I don't know what. So we'll see. I don't know, we'll see. For now, let's work on the session worksheet. So we'll bring up Obsidian. We'll go ahead and make a new session worksheet. Heck, I can't type. Okay. For the 9th, that sounds right. Yep. And this is in the Monsters campaign. So, scenes. We can grab some from the previous session. These will not be scenes 1 and 2 since we've switched this around, but, you know, whatever. So we have the stuff with the staff and Lady Jane. That all will happen later on in the session if it happens at all. So, we have... I need, like, a macro in here. I need a hotkey to press to just, like, bring it down to H6, because tapping 5 of these is a little bit tedious. Oh, it is 6. So, intro on the library. I'm not sure. I might want to have some... There's currently no encounter in the library. But maybe there's like a puzzle they can figure out? I quite dislike puzzles in D&D. When it's not like an environmental kind of situational puzzle, like, I like, how do we get across this ledge? How do we get to a dungeon underwater? How do we... there's a tar pit kind of between us, through this like cavern between us and the place we need to go. How do we kind of like get under here? You know, I like environmental problem solving like that. I don't like puzzles where there's only one answer. I don't like puzzles where there's like a right answer in D&D. It just doesn't sit quite right with me for some reason. Sounds like how I would do it. Yeah. So, like, I like that. I don't know how I make a puzzle in a library out of that, necessarily. So we'll see. We'll see if I come up with something. I might just let it be like a, I don't know, see what you find in here, and then we'll move on. It might just be like a easy room to rest in or something. I'm not sure. I'll think about it a little bit, but I think there might be another kind of pre-recorded, like, security message in this library of just Zishia saying, hello, welcome to the library. Effectively. Oh, I had Turris' dungeon as a kind of separate worksheet here. Yeah. Oh, yeah, like the boss of this floor. The tree is kind of the boss, but we might have like an animated armor, kind of like his, Turris is a summoner, and his summon is animated armor. So we might have something like that as like the boss of this floor, maybe? Could have another bit of automated defense that's kind of gotten weird. Kind of like out in this ethereal area, there could be something? Some kind of automated defense robot or construct or statue or something that is having trouble navigating the floaty ethereal whatever out here. I'm not sure. That's an option. Let's do the secrets and clues quick. So I believe, yeah, 3 was crossed off, and I think that's the only one. That is the bit about the Gemian Empire holding the Steno in reverence. So he uses the Sunset Sorceress. Yeah, I don't think they have found any of this other stuff yet. That's kind of the only rumor, the only bit of clue that they found. So, we just need one secret and or clue. Which is always the part that takes me the longest. We hammered through them pretty quick last time, but... So let's see. Kind of a bit of general... Maybe a bit of general world lore of some sort to replace the bit about the Gemian Empire. Not something directly related to the Gemian Empire. I guess this party, like, doesn't really know... Doesn't really know that, King Rureth in Lanova is kind of, like, taken over a lot of neighbors, kind of. So we could just throw that in. So many neighbors of Lanova and King Rureth. Have become vassals of the nation in exchange for security after the 4 were sealed away. Oh, and then over here, I guess, we'll put in that Turkan finds a book. This is notes for the last session that I forgot to put in. So Turkan finds a book referencing the Gemin Empire. Showing that Steno are held in some kind of high spiritual regard there. Some are known as spirit speakers. And this is a name that I came up totally with, that it came up with on the fly. I don't know if it's gonna stick or if I'm gonna replace it with something like in-gaming. And this is just like a kind of colloquial term that Vicitia used. Because I don't like spirit speakers that much, I just came up with it on the fly. I don't know, it's fine. It's not that bad, but. So let's see, what other scenes do we have? We have actual scene 1. We have like the ley line, I don't know what it's called, the ley line something or other. The name doesn't actually matter. Like a long name like the ley line distribution, whatever. We'll just call it the ley line orb. Ley line sphere. We'll just call it the distribution sphere, that's fine. I'm so picky. So. First thing you see is a wave of ley line energy splashing up over the edge of the walkway before you. Crackling crash. Let's see. Say wall. See a wall of ley line energy splashing up over the edge of the walkway before you. Sound of an ocean wave, but crackling. Sizzling. With the appropriate number of Z's. And a smell like hot metal. But also kind of a humid rush. Of something like autumn leaves. don't need to indent this. Source of that organic smell is kind of revealed to them as the wave falls. And they see the scion top of a great willow. Peeking just over the top of the walkway. And then the fading sound of something like steam. As the wave of leyline energy recedes. So. There's kind of like energy forking between the tree and the wave. So. So there's that. The workshop is going to be less of a kind of less of an overwrought description. And the description kind of like depends on which way they come in, but hear a loud crash around the corner just as you open the door. Rubble scattered in front of them. And really the description just kind of writes itself as they approach. Like, once they get kind of close enough, they'll see this kind of like, basically once they go over the top of one of these piles of rubble, they're going to see more of this leyline energy spread out throughout this workshop. And so there's just going to be like bits of machinery, tools, wheels, bent metal, shattered glass, scattered everywhere. And only one machine seems like it is still in working order in this room, and it is currently tearing viciously at something. I'll figure it out. So, obviously, they'll kind of have basically this encounter won't start until they kind of like reveal themselves to this creature. It'll kind of like make some perception checks if they're like peeking over this south wall, but if they come in from the north and they are just kind of like, you know, if they approach this area, maybe I'll ask for some checks, but they'll have a chance to kind of like look around this alchemy room for some stuff first. What do I have out here? What is this? I need to get rid of this in Dungeon Draft. There's just like some books floating out here. Sometimes in Dungeon Draft, your clicks can go a bit errant and things can end up where you don't mean for them to go. So, no idea what that is. We'll get rid of it in the other program. So yeah. That's really all I have for scenes. I guess I don't really have much for approaching the cave. And I should kind of copy this over to the dungeon page, but that's fiddly note stuff. I can do that. I can do that off stream. Yeah, approaching the cave. We can take a look at that real quick. I can show you guys the... I think we went over it last time a little bit. But this is kind of like a garden that has taken over a section of the Sepulchre of Seven dungeon. I'm not, you know, folks probably aren't familiar with that dungeon, but they should be. It's a wonderful adventure. So let's turn on GM vision. You can kind of see without GM vision. They see over here there is a staff that is like dully glowing beyond some trees and whatnot. Some strange black and red trees that have grown in here, which is a sign of some kind of like corrupted organic life that they've seen a couple of times. But if we turn GM vision back on, so we've got in here, some of these corrupted plants are going to be alive. There's like a hook melon here that kind of like grabs creatures and tries to control them. There's a big old scythe tree behind this dryad husk who is grown out of this staff. The staff is the arm of a different dryad. And out of kind of the dark influence that has come over the staff, this dryad has come to life and grown out of that branch. And yeah, they're a bit of a spellcaster. They have a lot of abilities to summon animals. They can cast like darkness and fear. And speak with plants. Haha. What an excellent spell. Yeah. They have like frightful presence, so as they approach, they'll get like feared and stuff. They can drain some health from, oh, not health. They apply the drained condition to creatures, which is like losing a whole ass level. So, you know, there's that. She will summon at the very start of the encounter this stag, this big stag kind of made out of plants and bark. So, it'll be kind of a fight with lots of these like plants as the party approaches. There's like an upper level here that they can climb up on. And yeah, I don't know. It'll basically be a fight of if they stay far, this dryad will cast darkness kind of in between. They won't be able to see, and she'll kind of summon some animals to send after them, but the lower ranks of the spell are super weak, so I'm not that worried about it. And yeah, that'll pretty much be the fight. Of these plants just impeding their progress while she like casts things at them. Yeah, she doesn't have anything super long range other than the spells. Her Impart Anguish is only a 15-foot cone. So, her whole thing will kind of be like... I guess Murderous Vine is 60 feet, but she'll be summoning things. That's kind of the whole thing. The whole thing here, so... So yeah, I'm looking forward to that. You can see it goes from just like there's a bit of moss over here on the east side, the entrance of the cave, up this river, to like just completely overgrown. Lots of this like kind of almost tar-like organic substance everywhere, with like a little bit of grass and stuff in between. And yeah, I guess technically the big. Oh no, the stag's only level 4, but there's like some scary stuff kind of in here, kind of between the dryad and the party. So yeah, looking forward to that. So the scene approaching this is kind of just like, you know. The river is kind of tough to walk through. I don't know if I'm gonna put a big pin in that, or like a point on that. I don't think that's gonna be a huge deal. It's fine if it's a little easier to walk through it at this time of year or whatever, compared to last campaign where it was like a rushing river. It's fine if it's easier for this party to approach through the river. That I don't care. Yeah, so it was dark, damp. And if they're like walking or whatever. Well, the rocks are covered in kind of like slimy residue, or rocks are slippery, kind of slick with whatever, just slick. Let's say. Beneath the water. Walls covered in moss. More common as you travel upriver. And they might ask if it's kind of like outlandish or alien looking moss, but the answer is just going to be no at this point. Slow going. Well, let's see. Every slosh of water, every sound echoes back against the water and tight cave walls. And it is slow going. Eventually, the cave widens. You see a bit of man-made structure incorporated in some of the cave wall. We'll reverse this. Eventually, you see a bit of man-made structure incorporated in the cave wall. Then, the cave widens. Find almost a beach of pebbles and small stones. And then I'll like show them the map. And ahead, in the dark, something glows an eerie purple. You swear you see a silhouette beyond the glow. Okay. And depending on their light situation, if they like light a torch or anything like that, they'll kind of start to see this like black moss very, very quickly. So yeah, well, but I'll confident in my description from there. So. And then there's this whole scene with Jay and Half Elven when they finally pick up the staff when they kind of purify this grove. Where kind of the not immediately previous owner of the staff, but the owner before that, before this adventurer came and took it and kind of his kind of twisted, kind of darkened desires kind of like change how the staff get like absorbed into the staff. The previous owner is Jane Half-Elven, who was kind of like a local hero of the region where this dungeon is. And there will be kind of an exchange with her and one of the players, because this staff has a bit of a history of like rage and vengeance, in addition to being kind of a weapon of natural justice and good. It's got kind of this dichotomy going on because of how it was used in this war that got so twisted up, and it became just surrounded and corrupted by violence. And the person who's going to end up with it is kind of a follower of the nature god, the nature goddess, whose family was killed in the temple to this nature goddess, and she's out for revenge. So there's a lot of reverence for nature mixed up with like violence and revenge, and it's just all this item is going to become greater and a more interesting kind of vessel for storytelling in the hands of the next wielder, for sure. I'm very interested to see how it goes and how that interacts. So that's kind of like the point of this interaction, is the player who's getting the staff doesn't know all this history. So we've got some spark notes here about this immense kind of Elapho Centaur figure appears also holding this staff, and they're going to be kind of saying like, this weapon gifted in love and hope, but its heart knotted in righteous fury, strengthened by it, darkened by it. Kind of talks about how they surely would have lost the war without it, but how her companions' hearts would not have been so set by their grim convictions and so blackened by it without its kind of like surety of purpose bolstering them. So it's kind of like a brief SparkNotes, flowery, poetic version of the history of this weapon and Lady Jane, who's become a bit of a local deity in her own right. And she's just going to be saying like, look, man, this kind of righteous fury and vengeance, it is strong. And this staff will help bring that out of you if you let it. And it will bolster that, and it will make you strong. But mind yourself, because it might overtake you and it might burn you out from within. So I'm excited for that scene, because this character has had some pretty emotional scenes lately, and this is just gonna like add to the pile. Yeah. Yeah, I've been enjoying that character's storyline so far. They're certainly the darkest storyline in this party, and there's a lot of things that blend into it. This whole the enemies who have come and invaded this world, the kind of like bigger storylines got nothing to do with the dungeon that we're exploring, or even the staff, but like this kind of invading force that the party is gathering power for and kind of strengthening themselves to fight. They're here for revenge. They're here for revenge against gods that this world doesn't particularly like anymore. They're like fighting off. They just fought off these 4 gods, sealed them away. And then these enemies from beyond the stars come, and they're like, hey, we're looking for those 4 that you sealed away. We're gonna like eat them, and probably your world while we're at it. And so now the world has to kind of like fight these aliens off. Only because they're here to like find the 4 gods that this world already kind of like beat and sealed away. So I don't know. There's a lot of revenge going on on like all sides. A lot of kind of similar themes cropping up in different places. So that's always fun. It's very cool. Another character in the party is like one of they kind of existed like before the 4 came and kind of took over the world a long time ago, thousands of years ago. They kind of like went into stasis, went into sleep, and woke back up after these 4 gods were sealed away. And so they're kind of like trying to figure out how much they try to get their old world back, how much they try to protect this world, that kind of thing. I don't know. A lot of cool thematic stuff. So I'm excited to see how it goes going forward. And if you guys are interested, check it out on Saturday. So that's it for like set scenes that I think I need to write for now. I do need to write some stuff for like the end of the dungeon, but I need to figure out kind of what it looks like first. How long have we been going? An hour and a half? Let's open Dungeon Draft, and in here, in Foundry, I'll maybe take some notes. So, some like room types that I was considering are like, oh, is GM Vision on? Let's turn that off. So we got this ethereal kind of opening again. This place where the tower is kind of cracked apart a little bit. Well, quite a bit, actually. We just had this gap over here, and now it's like this entire half of the tower is cracked into the ethereal plane and not very cohesive. So, what kinds of things? What kinds of things do we think might be here? This is a bad place to make a list. I just remembered. You can't, like, put gaps. You can't put, like... Foundry, for whatever reason, doesn't believe in the new line character when it comes to text that you can write on the page. You have to make, like, separate text notes. I can't make, like, a sticky note and then have, like, multiple lines. So let's go into the worksheet instead. I don't like that. I don't want to do that. Let's make a journal entry. Oh yeah, that's kind of cool. Okay, sorry. That's a whole separate thing. Well, we could go over the relics that I'm putting together. But let's go over this first. I just don't want to do it here. We'll just do it in multiple text entries. It's fine. I don't care. So, I'm alert because I feel like I need some sleep. Sounds good. I hope you get some good sleep, and I will certainly keep at it. I appreciate you stopping by and saying hello, talking D&D with me a little bit. So let's see. Out here, like stables, maybe? I'll go ahead and hide this just in case. And then there's like bedrooms, but probably upstairs. There could be like a barracks or a guest house. That's probably not a bad move. That's probably just a yes. That's probably one of them. You know? This is definitely just stairs up, like I said. There's a little bit of, like, courtyard here. This goes to kind of a monument that is going to be, like, a flower kind of carved out of stone. Like a perfectly organic looking flower, but carved out of stone or metal. And then kind of like very inorganic shape, but like grown out of a flower. Like maybe a perfect sphere made of like a unbloomed flower or something like that. Something like that. Or like a pyramid made out of a tree or a bush or bark or something. But I don't like that as much. Something like that. kind of dedicated to something that these two guardians made. They may have been a little bit in love. Because I know one of the players in particular is like a sucker for that. That's truly the main reason. Yeah. And, like, I think the idea with the barracks or the guest house is that, like, it's just floating out here. It's not necessarily supposed to be on this floor. It's just in ethereal plane storage. I think that's kind of the idea. Could be something like a temple, or like a shrine to Arcanus, who is the god that Visicia served for the last 10,000 years. The kind of invader god that took over. Could be kind of a shrine there, or a place to commune with him. Yeah. So there might be something like that here to kind of put a... There'll be more of, like, Visicia's kind of interests, more of Visicia's backstory as we go up. But it might put kind of like a fine point on the floor that's kind of, like, dedicated to her stuff. It's got her workshop, it's got her library. If we have kind of the shrine to Arcanus. I wonder what his dream is like. I haven't considered too much. A couple campaigns ago, the players glimpsed into the dream of one of the sealed gods. And it was pretty wild. I'm curious what Arcanus's must look like. Because he's kind of the god of like arcane magic and construction and design and invention and creation. So it's probably less chaotic. It's probably less chaotic than Scala's, who was the goddess of like time and like the cosmos kind of, and like entropy. So I imagine her dream is kind of the most chaotic of the three, really. Sorry, I mean the four. And I think this is just like some back stairs to the second floor or something. I don't really know. I don't really know. Like, there's like a balcony up here that kind of like leads downward and maybe upward into the garden. Yeah. Okay. Said I was gonna write some like recorded security lines and stuff. I think I'll do that offline too. As it kind of comes to me, I'll just be like listening to music. I think we're pretty much done. I think we're pretty much done with the prep for the night. Some of the future prep streams will be longer, I'm sure. Tonight I mostly wanted to get on, do the worksheet, and then chill. I have some conversations I'm having with people that I want to get back to. So... Then my doggo is quite bored. It got snowy, as discussed earlier. And we didn't get a very long excursion earlier when I took him out. So, might try to entertain him a little bit more too. So, yeah. Next time I will probably get an earlier start and we'll go a little bit longer. So, I'm going to find someone to raid. And I will... Well, maybe I will just... Yeah, I'm going to find someone to raid and then I'll shut it down, I think. So, we'll see who's around. I think Voraktee might be online, although it's getting kind of late. I'll do some snooping. But, for now, I hope everyone gets through the rest of the week just fine. And I will see you all again on Saturday if you'd like to check out any of this campaign that we've been working on tonight. And if not, then I'll see you all again real soon. Goodbye!